All right, welcome everyone to the Dashboard Dojo. Today we're going to do our second session on sales reporting in Salesforce. So glad that you can join us. So just as a quick agenda, we'll do quick introductions and then we'll dive right into a series of topics and do some demos on those topics. We'll share some upcoming OpFocus events and training classes, also talk about the upcoming Dōjō topics. I thought to introduce, starting in the summer, an interview series with some really badass reporting folks that I've come across over the years. And if there's any folks that you have been impressed with that might be good candidates, thought to weave in interviews into the Dōjō topics with people and ask them about what's their favorite feature and could they show us something cool, that sort of thing. We're not as formal with the Q&A. You're very welcome to ask questions in the chat along the way. Kyle Chagnon, who's here, OpFocus's event manager, will help us manage that. Thanks again for joining us, Kyle.
Always a pleasure.
All right, great. So who am I? My name is David Carnes. I'm the chairman and chief evangelist of OpFocus. I've been honored to be part of the Salesforce MVP program. This is my second year, and I am a happy off-road truck owner. In fact, just before jumping on today, I was talking with an off-road truck shop in New Hampshire, asking them about lift kits for this Tacoma in the picture here, where this was terrifying, this particular stretch of the rocks. I was very concerned about damaging the underside of the car going down this particular path. This is probably in a 10,000 acre piece of woods in Southwest Vermont. It was really fun to drive around. So OpFocus, we've been in the Salesforce space since 2006. We work with SaaS companies to help optimize their revenue operations. We help scale those operations. We eat, sleep, and breathe Salesforce. So really happy you could join us. So when we met back in February for the sales reporting and Salesforce part 1, we talked about a bunch of stuff. And it was in preparing for that I realized, wow, there's more to talk about that can fit into one session. If you haven't been part of the Dōjō before, or if you haven't seen, we have about 30 recordings on the Dōjō site. I think Kyle can throw the link to the recordings page. In that session back in February, we talked about, what do you need for Salesforce sales reporting? We talked about the opportunity report types that come out of the box. We talked about some useful stuff for sales reporting, and then probably spent the bulk of the time talking through what's pipeline, what's forecast, and then how to attempt target versus actual. So that was what we did last time back in February on sales reporting. For today, I thought to tackle a couple of different types of topics. So one of them is pipeline versus funnel. So we hear from, I probably started, I first noticed it with HubSpot back 10, 15 years ago. They started talking about top of the funnel, tofu, mofu, and bofu, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. And there's another concept around the sales funnel that's, I think, pretty well widely accepted. So we'll talk about those two things. We'll talk about pipeline coverage. So this is something at the beginning of a new year, beginning of a new quarter, you hear about. So CROs and heads of your companies want to know, what's our pipeline coverage? And we typically just do simple math with that, but there are some quirks within Salesforce reporting that make that a little more challenging. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about reporting on net new logos. So a lot of organizations, that's an important metric. I think boards have been interested in that. I've heard that in the last 10 years. What's the percentage of net new logos? We'll talk about that. Something that's available, it's not as widely known. So Salesforce introduced Einstein opportunity scoring. It was a paid product for a number of years. It still is a paid product, but there's a free version of it. If you have Enterprise Edition with Sales Cloud licenses, you can take advantage of the Einstein AI-driven opportunity scoring, and we can generate an expected, essentially an AI expected amount based on what the AI observes. And so we'll talk about using that and weaving that into reporting. I also thought to share, some quirky stuff with reporting on opportunity products. So if you do use CPQ and you use products there, if you just use plain old opportunity products, every now and then you need to do a pipeline based on one of your products, and we can do it. It's just not very clear. And then oddly, under the hood with custom report types, opportunity products just aren't supported. You can't create a custom report type that I know of with opportunity products. So we'll wrap things up today talking through the free App Exchange app, which is a dashboard pack with 4 dashboards. It's called the Pre-Configured Sales Cloud Dashboards. All right, so let's dive right in. So pipeline versus funnel. So these words, you hear are probably in a lot of cases interchangeable, but there are specific meanings. On the Clary website, Kyle will share a few blog articles that have nice write-ups on what these terms specifically mean. So the sales funnel refers to the path that the prospect follows to eventually become a customer. So this is, and you can see in the chart here on the right, the four typical phases of a sales funnel. There's awareness, there's interest, there's some sort of an evaluation phase, and then finally there's a decision. So this would be based on your opportunity stages. You may have 8 opportunity stages. If you sell to the military, you might have 25 opportunity stages. This is a nice way of sort of summing it up into, is it awareness, is it interest, et cetera. So the sales funnel refers to this, and then I'll also share another version of it in a second. But when we talk about sales pipeline, this refers to the total number of quality opportunities. So usually that means qualified opportunities. And this could be in all of your stages from qualification onward. So we talk about our pipeline, that usually means anything that's open that's qualified. So I mentioned there are 2 different types of sales funnels. Some of you may have heard of tofu, mofu, and bofu. And then there's this other one, the 4 stages. But you may have a head of sales say, I'd really like to see, what do we have in the top of the funnel? So this we can tackle pretty easily just by assigning opportunity stages and either using a row level formula or using bucket columns on a report. So we'll take a look at that in 1 second. The screenshot here on this slide has just your list of opportunity stages. If you're brand new to an organization, or if you have a new head of sales coming on board and she wants to change the sales methodology, this list of sales stages is very important. We can find it under setup, object manager, opportunities, and then on the stage field, we can see this list. But essentially what you're doing is mapping these stages to either the funnel, the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, up in the top, or this list of 4 stages isn't the right word because that would conflict with opportunity stages. But when we talk about this down here, for the 4, there's awareness, and usually an opportunity is in business development, or it's still being worked by marketing. The same is true with interest. There still could be worked by business development or marketing. Whereas when you get down to evaluation and consideration, that's typically something that sales is driving, and the same with decision, that's something that sales is driving. So both of these are fine. I think they're almost interchangeable. In the world that we work with, the SaaS world, we hear of tofu and mofu quite a bit. So let's go see how to create this. Actually, I didn't even say what the definition. So tofu is top of the funnel. So the prospect needs information. Whereas middle of the funnel, usually the prospect wants to understand how you might solve their problem. Whereas bottom of the funnel, they're sort of getting ready to make a decision. So to tackle this in Salesforce, pretty straightforward. You have your opportunity stages already created. And essentially what we need to do is map them either using a bucket column, or we could use a row level formula. I think about bucket columns is pretty straightforward here, especially with the stage field, which usually doesn't have a mess in the data. Bucket columns aren't great if the list of pick list values if the data stored in the field has values that aren't in the pick list, then that creates a problem with bucket columns. But in this case with stage, you typically don't have other random stages stored in the opportunity. You just have this list So bucket column is a good choice. So we'll create an opportunity report. We'll set the filters to open and all time. So we'll just see open opportunities. We'll sum the amount and we can add both bucket columns, and then we'll add a chart. And I want to show the difference between the two of them. So here's the report that I created. And if we go in, and I've added two bucket columns here, one for each. So there's the sales funnel. And if we were to look at that, so adding a bucket column is very straightforward. You select the field that you want to pick, give it a name, and then you create your bucket. So each bucket column can have up to 20 buckets. And then from that list of buckets, or to that list of buckets, you can assign the values. So if it's a pick list, you just literally go right through the pick list and assign all of them. So in this case, you can see that I've assigned prospecting to the awareness bucket, qualification to the interest bucket, needs analysis to the interest bucket, and so on. And there's only one down at the bottom, the negotiation review, which is in the decision bucket. So this just allows you to very quickly group all of your opportunities that are open based on these values. So if I look at that, I'm not seeing it here because I didn't group by it, but if I show the detail rows, we can see the column over here on the right. Boy, do I have a lot of things on my screen right here. Okay, so you can see this, this bucket here. You can see the little bucket icon, and it's showing the categorization. Well, I did the same thing with top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. I created a second bucket called funnel. And again, I just created my 3 buckets and I assigned all the open opportunity stages to one of those buckets. And then I took one extra step here, and then I used that to group by. So when you use bucket columns, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the list of fields that you can use as a column, you can select bucket fields. You can also use row level formulas in groups as well, just to throw that out there. So that's how I selected this one here. And then now that I've added a grouping, I can go ahead and add a chart. So I'm showing using the funnel chart, showing how to do this. So that's pretty straightforward. Thank you, Kyle, for putting the items into the comments into the chat, or the links into the chat, I guess we'd say. So I do want to point out just a couple of other things with this. And you know, you don't have to use a funnel. I think a lot of times heads of sales are kind of focused on seeing things looking like a funnel. You don't have to. You could just as easily show it this way if you wanted to. You know, depending on the type of chart that you choose, you have different properties that are available to you down below. So with a funnel, if I switch back to that, I have the ability to show the values. I can show the percentages. There's something I want you to be careful of if you do use a funnel, that the default is to combine small groups into others, and that's a problem. So I don't ever want that when I look at a funnel. If there's, you know, some sliver of $10,000 in the contract stage, I want to see it. I don't want that glommed together with other random stages. Great. Okay, so that's the funnel reporting, and just using buckets makes that pretty easy. So the next thing that I thought to talk about is pipeline coverage ratio. I've heard this ever since I joined the first software company that I worked for and started doing sales reporting. There was this sort of golden rule, somewhere between 3 times pipeline, or 3 times quota and 5 times quota. Somewhere in there is what the golden, and this 3.2 I've seen a few different times. So is this a hard and fast number? Absolutely not. I'd actually be curious if any of you want to put into the chat, do you have a pipeline coverage ratio? Do you use this? And is there a number in your organization that you're targeting? I'm curious if anybody wants to throw that into chat. It'd be interesting. So this is not scientific. However, it seems to have been the, okay, so Healy suggested a 10x. So that's a pretty hefty amount. There are probably reasons within the industry, the deal size, the sales cycle, how transactional the deals are, why you'd want 10x coverage. So that's interesting to hear. Now, what's interesting about this, so this is basically, you know, we might at the beginning of a quarter or beginning of the year say, what is our total open pipeline? And then what is our sales target? And do we have enough deals, if we divide the total open pipeline by the target, do we have enough deals to make our number? And usually that number is, oh, Healy said, new business is hard to come by in our industry. Oh, that's hard. Yeah. So some industries have to work harder. Sure. So in coming up with an example for this, I discovered something that I hadn't realized, that conditional formatting doesn't do decimals. And I'll show you that in a second. But if you are targeting something like 3.2, in order to visually show that, a chart would be nice. And we can actually put the reference line on the chart. And you can see that here on the screenshot over here on the right. But in this example, so our leadership team is anxious to understand if we have enough qualified pipeline to make our number this quarter. And they want us to use a ratio of 3.2 as, are we going to make it or not? So they're also interested in which reps might need help building up their pipeline. So if we create a report and we group it by the opportunity owner, we could actually do one calculation using a summary formula for all the reps for the entire team. And then we could do another summary formula for each individual rep so that we get their individual calculations. So to go look at this in the system, I close this, go to this next one. So I've built this out here, and to show you sort of the behind the scenes here, what I've done is I'm just looking at open opportunities for all time. And actually it looks like I've added, it looks like I've created this example that I'm going to focus just on this quarter. And I'm not going to include the prospecting opportunities. So I'm just going to include qualified opportunities. I think a lot of companies will include anything that's open and use that in the math. In the Clary blog article that Kyle either has shared or will share about the pipeline coverage, I think they talk about just using qualified pipeline. But in this case, what I've done is I've created two formula fields, and we can see them here. And if I jump back over, and so I've got the team number here, and I created a formula. So in order to create a formula on a report, you first have to group it by something. So it's grayed out here, but you can see that I've grouped this by opportunity owner. And then next to the right of the word columns, we can add a summary formula, and you can have up to 5 of these per report. We're going to do 2 of them. And the interesting thing here is we're essentially hard coding the team's quota. This would be for the entire team into our formula to be able to do this math. So I'm taking the total amount, the sum of the open pipeline, and I'm dividing it by the team's quota for the quarter. The output type is a number, and I'm going to include 1 decimal point in this. So when I add that, what I did next was add a second formula field for individual sales reps. And the difference between the two, it's the same math, but the display is different. So for the first one, I'm just doing grand total. I only want that to sum and do the math just at the grand total for the team. Whereas for the individual sales reps, there we go. For the individual sales reps, I'm doing the same math, but the reps' individual numbers are smaller. So not the 40 million for the entire team, but 2.5 million for each rep. And the only way that this would work is that if all the reps have the same quota, which I took that liberty here just to show you an example. Salesforce doesn't do great with target versus actual. This is a case where we sort of make it work by embedding numbers directly into a formula. Now on the display for this one, I'm doing the display at the specific group of opportunity owner. So one of these, the math is for the entire report, all opportunities in the pipeline, and the second one is just for each individual sales rep. So let's go look at that. Not sure what, oh, there we go. So you can see the one for individual pipeline, the numbers appear for each salesperson, whereas the team one, there is no number per person. It's at the bottom of the report. So when I go run this, it's actually put up at the top. And in this case, we just magically, and it's funny that I didn't even stage that, we hit 3.2. I just picked a number 40 million, and apparently that's 3.2. So the total pipe of 126 million is 3.2 of our 40 million target. So that's for the team, and you can see the way that that appears here on the report is it's just blank for each individual. But if you do want to do the individual reps, that's what I have here in this column. And I did try to go in and do conditional formatting, but it was really frustrating because the conditional formatting, it doesn't do decimals. And all the numbers either got rounded up or rounded down. So the conditional formatting essentially wouldn't work. I wanted to do 3. If it's below 3.2, show it as red so we can quickly see it. So conditional formatting was not a good choice for that. However, by adding this chart, and this is again grouped, the report is grouped by each individual sales rep, we can add a reference line on the chart, and that reference line can be set to 3.2. So this accomplished what I wanted. That you can see that Bruce is fine. He's got 5.6, and Dennis has got 3.4, and Johnny's got 6.2. But these other chumps don't have enough pipeline to cover their quota. So Kyle put into the chat a nice blog article on the Clary website. Clary is a BI tool. They do have some good RevOps content on their website. So I thought to share a couple of those blog articles around how to do these kinds of calculations. All right. So that's pipeline coverage ratio. In calculating net new logos, a lot of us will work off of the opportunity type field. So this is a field that comes out of the box. It usually has the values new business or existing business. If those are the only two values you have, then this is a lot easier for you. Whereas in the case of the dev orgs that we use in the Dōjō, there's these other values, existing customer, blah, blah, blah. And so it's just a little harder to make this clear. It's not harder, it's just one extra step. So we can use the type field on the opportunity to distinguish net new logos versus existing customers. This is the simple way to do it. You might use a row level formula or a bucket column to actually display it on a report. The problem with this, and we even have this problem at OpFocus. So we have a sales team, I think there are 5 on the sales team. If somebody doesn't, when they create the new opportunity, set the, is it a new customer or existing? If they don't set it correctly, then this data is not what you need it to be. So a more complex solution would be, and this isn't really even that complex, would be on the account to create what's called a roll-up summary formula. So a sysadmin would create this for you, and you might roll up the first win date. And if it's blank, it's not a customer. If it's got the date populated, then it is a customer. You might then also, when an opportunity is created, have a flow which wakes up and checks to see if the associated account has a first win date. And if it does, then you might set it as a customer. And that might be a better way to do it, just to make sure the data is entered correctly. So again, this is one of those things that I've heard a lot of boards want to know, like, is our marketing driving net new customers? So we might see that in the form of a donut on a report or a dashboard. So what I've done here, my data in this org isn't very clean. There are some values that aren't in the pick list, and that makes a bucket column not as useful. So in this case, I used a row level formula, and you can see the row level formula here on the right. It's pretty simple. So basically, if it's existing business, make it existing, otherwise call it new. And that's just based on the data that I had. I think there were 3 values in the pick list and maybe some other data, and I used the row level formula. So this example here, we can see the output, just a simple, the donut. Donuts are good for if you don't have a lot of slices in the pie. I see a lot of ridiculous donuts that have 20 different slices, and it's not that useful. It's hard to look at, it's hard to interact with. I think 2 is pretty clear. And then you can see the total number of logos, total number of opportunities, and then you can see the percentages of how many are new customers. Now, one other consideration, and the reason why I mentioned using a date, not everybody calculates the new logo the same way. At OpFocus, we say, I think it's within the first 6 months, and it's funny that I've already forgotten. But when you create a new opportunity for a net new customer, if you were to sell a second or even a third opportunity within the first 6 months, we still consider that net new. And it's basically how much, that allows us to calculate how much new revenue did we do? If we do a smaller project up front, that's maybe a design project. So some of you may want to have a little bit more intricacy in how you generate the net new logos. You could use this roll-up summary formula idea at the account, roll up the first win date, and then you could do the math on your report. So let's just look at this on the on my report here.
Sorry, before you go ahead, Matthew had a question. If I deactivate a pick list value action, do all the entries need to be manually chosen to another existing action, or does it start there going forward?
So deactivate a pick list value to all entries. So if you deactivate a pick list, I'll interpret your question this way. So let's say that we had 10 opportunity stages originally. We have a new head of sales and she says these two are ridiculous. Nobody's ever going to use them. So get rid of these 2 opportunity stages. And if you deactivate them, there still could be opportunities with those values in your database. And what's interesting with a bucket column on a pick list, it doesn't let you go after those. I think the only option is to glom them into the other category. So there are implications of leaving things in a deactive state and leaving old data, let's say old pick list values in your system. So the way that I worked around it in this case is I used, in this case I used I did both. That's what I did here. Okay, so to show you one way, I have cleaner data here, but it's not pristine. I have a value of new business and existing business, and I think there's one other value, and I can't represent it. There's no way to represent that other value. It's in the database. I can't represent it because the way a bucket column interacts with the pick list choices. So there are only 2 pick list choices, and I think to Matthew's questions, I have one that's inactive. There's really no good way other than to bucket the remaining values as other. If you do not bucket the remaining values as other, you get this quirky situation where you have your bucket value, and then all of a sudden you have the actual value of the source field. It just gets thrown in. Salesforce doesn't know what to do with it. So I guess that's your 2 choices. You can show the actual value of that pick list, or bucket them into other. So the second choice here, and actually let's look at that column. It's way over here on the right. I've just got too many columns in this report. So you can see I've got new, existing, other. And so that it's the other that I sort of felt was awkward. So I went to plan B. I used a row level formula instead. So here's the row level formula, and I just called this one new logos, and it's pretty straightforward. It's basically using an if statement, which says if the text of the type field equals existing business, that's the only one that I'm sure of, then it's existing. Otherwise, there must be two values, including an inactive one, that have the word new in them. So I called those new. So if the text of type is existing, call it existing. Otherwise, the rest of it is just glommed into new. So this is the way that I charged forward, and it works fine to use the row level formula in that way. So then we can group by row level formulas and by bucket columns. So in this case, I didn't group by the bucket, I grouped by the row level formula, and then I added the donut chart. So Matthew added, so I'd have to go back and manually change all the status for the value I want to deactivate. So I want to be careful in saying yes, Matthew. It depends on what data you're talking about. I try to caution people to not go changing too much history. Regardless of what you do, please back up all of your data. So if it's the opportunity object, back up all the opportunities, including the IDs. I use the data loader to do that. I just throw it all into a CSV file. So I have a copy if I ever need to switch it back. Yes, when let's say that you had one head of sales and she had her sales stages one way, and you have a new head of sales and he wants the sales stages a different way. Usually when you do the mapping you map all the old values over. So not a field like stage, you'd probably clean that up 100% of the time. Whereas other pick lists, you may leave old values, for now nostalgia or some other reason. I'm not sure. All right, cool. So that's net new logos. I did want to talk about opportunity scoring. We haven't talked about this in the Dōjō for a while, and maybe not ever. I'm trying to remember if we've ever talked about it. So this is a feature that Salesforce, it's part of the Einstein sales product, but they carved out opportunity scoring and gave it free to everybody who has, I think it's Enterprise Edition with Sales Cloud licenses. So this is pretty simple to turn on. They gave it free, I want to say it was either 2 or 3 years ago so it's not new. But once you turn it on, basically what Salesforce does is it analyzes not just the opportunity object and all the history of your opportunities, but it also looks at the account object, it looks at products, it looks at pricing, it looks at activities, and it comes up with a score based on all the history of all your other opportunities. What it does is it shows the positives and the negatives that are used to calculate the score. So up here in the top right, you can see a screenshot. This is of a list view, and it's a great way to take advantage of opportunity scoring. So this would be, let's say I'm looking at my open pipeline and I can see what the AI is suggesting. Will these deals close? If you were to hover over any of those numbers, you can see what it looks like. It'll basically show you the score, and a 3 is pathetic. Basically, there are no positives when you get a 3. That's one that you should probably just quietly walk away from. So why is it a 3? You can see here in the top negatives, the close date keeps being delayed, there's a low success rate, and so on. So these are great for list views and for reporting. In order to take advantage of this, there are minimum opportunity data requirements. So your opportunities have to have more than an average of 1 day lifespan. For most of us, that's not a problem. You need to have had at least 200 closed won ops and 200 closed lost ops in the last 2 years. Okay, it looks like the lifespan has to be 2 days. I apologize. It's twice as much as I said. I said 1 day. There are other requirements. This is very easy for an admin to turn on. Before turning it on, what I'd suggest that you do is you run a readiness check. So this is something a sysadmin can do. They go into setup, they go under platform tools, Einstein assessors. And when you click on the Sales Cloud Einstein, you might put in what's your average deal size and click generate report. And this will tell you whether you're a good candidate to use this or not. So once you have the thumbs up on that, if you go a little further down, again, under platform tools, Einstein, and go under Einstein sales, there's something called assisted setup, and it's very easy to set this up. So Salesforce does all the work. You check a box and click enable, or whatever this button says here, turn it on, it says, and then Salesforce goes and cranks out what the opportunity scores are. So what that does is it adds a new field into your system. It's called either score or opportunity score. And that's a score from essentially 1 to 99 for all of your open opportunities. Now, the reason why I've just talked about all this is like they came so achingly close to making this really useful. What if we divided that number by 100 and considered it a percentage and then multiplied it by the amount? Well, then we can essentially create an AI weighted amount. So if we look at this, so I've got an example here. So we heard that AI driven opportunity scoring is free. We want to use it, so we turned it on. We want to create an AI expected revenue as a point of reference against expected revenue. So expected revenue is an ancient field in Salesforce that is the output of multiplying the amount times the probability. And as we all know, the probability is set by default when you move stages. It's kind of a terrible indicator of what's the expected amount of the opportunity. I'd say, well, it's been there for years. Some people probably use it and think of it religiously. you might benefit from another data point, such as if we came up with this AI expected revenue. So in this case, what I'd probably do is create an opportunity report. I'd probably compare the actual amount with the expected revenue. I'd show the score, and then I'd show this AI expected revenue here. This is kind of interesting. So this might show on this report here, you can see the summary columns, the total amount of open pipelines. So we have 122 open deals, 154 million in open opportunities. Based on the probabilities on the opportunities, it's saying 69 million. But the AI is actually saying, now, wait a minute, we've had good success with this, or this sales activity is suggesting a higher percentage to close. So I like it as almost like a triangulation of where are we going to land, and you might land somewhere in the middle. Now, I did this as a row level formula on the report. In real life, I'd probably create this as a formula field on the opportunity. So on the report itself, we have one extra opportunity stage in these orgs. I added it a long time ago, of dead. But basically, we have an if statement here that says, if the text of the stage name is closed won, then just show the amount. So if it's 1, it's essentially 100% of amount. Else, if the stage is closed lost or dead, put 0. So we know it's never gonna, it's dead. It's not coming back to life. And then there's another else here, essentially with this last comma. And then here's the magic. It's that AI driven opportunity score divided by 100 times the amount, because the score is 1 to 99 essentially. So with this here, you can tell that I fudged this a little bit in a dev org. I don't think I can turn on the opportunity score. So I just created a fake opportunity score for the purpose. But in your case, you would replace that with the real opportunity score field, divided by 100, multiplied by the amount. So let's go see how this looks. Okay, so here's that same report from the screenshot. We've got the total amount, the total expected revenue, and the total AI expected revenue. I tried to come up with a good name for this. I don't like the name expected revenue. OpFocus, we work with SaaS companies. SaaS companies don't do revenue in Salesforce. They do bookings. So sales bookings, and depending on your industry, you may not use the word revenue as well. But just for consistency, there's the out-of-the-box field expected revenue, and then this one that we created with a formula called AI expected revenue. So if we go look at this in the report builder, and you can see this is my fake opportunity score, and you can see the numbers 1 to 100, and the ones that are blank are essentially ones that are either won or lost. But I'm essentially compensating for that. Even though the score is blank, in my formula, I'm saying if it's closed won, just show the full amount. So that's why the 1.394 million matches the 1.394 million over here. And then down below, we're just multiplying the amount times the opportunity score to get these numbers over here. So that formula is pretty straightforward. And it's the one that I had on that last screenshot. But one thing to note about using this, what's not perfect, is these, in a multi-currency org, the output of these row level formulas cannot be currency. So I'm kind of stuck having this be a number. And you may not have noticed that there's no $ over here, whereas for amount and expected revenue, there's a $. There is no option with that. So if I want that, or if I need that, and for a bunch of other reasons, I think I'd actually go create an actual field on the opportunity object. And this is not anything new, creating a formula field. In Enterprise Edition, you get 500 custom fields per object. So I would argue that we can certainly use 1 to achieve our goal here. And if I go down to the opportunity object, we can see the field that I created. I called it the AI weighted amounts, just so that I could differentiate between, and this formula is even simpler because we have the ability to use system generated formula fields here. So if is 1, show the amount, else if is closed, show 0, because if it's not 1, and it's closed, it has to be lost essentially. So show 0. And then this is my fake opportunity score field. You would use the real opportunity score field, divide it by 100, multiply it by the amount to get this. You know, I meant to ask in the chat, has anybody used the Einstein opportunity scoring? Has anybody set that up? I'd love to hear a yes or a no. I should have put it as a poll question. Okay, so Healy's using it. And is it helpful, Healy? I'm just curious if this is helpful to you. And I'd be interested to hear anyone else's feedback on it. It's very simple to set up, very simple to use. And I'll throw into the chat here, AI weighted amount formula field. Yeah, so not terribly helpful, but it's just like another data point, and it's based on all the history of all your opportunities in the system. So great. All right. So I've got 2 more topics. One of them is reporting on opportunity products. So I don't know if any of you have ever tried this. It's less straightforward than you'd think. There are 3 standard report types to help you report on opportunity products. So there's the opportunities with products, which it looks like all the other standard report types, but it's actually a little different. And it was like a decade ago that they changed this. It's a left outer join based on opportunities with or without products. Now there is another one further down in the list. It's under the price books, products, and assets category. When you go to create a report, you can create a report on products with opportunities. And that's based on an inner join. So there will never be an opportunity that has no products. There'll never be a product that's listed that has no opportunities. So that's a very different data construct. There is yet another one, and I put the question mark next to it over here. It's opportunities with contact roles and products. I didn't really come up with a good use case for that, so I didn't. I'll show it to you in a second, but didn't really think to spend a lot of time on it. The big quirky thing in my mind is that, to my knowledge, we can't create a custom report type on opportunity products. We can create one on products, but we can't work our way up through the related lookups to grab opportunity fields and stuff like that. So to me, there's something missing with our ability to report on opportunity products in Salesforce. So if these are the main 2 that we're stuck with, you know, let's learn a little bit more about them. So interestingly, in help, and I think, Kyle, there's a link to throw into the chat, there is a list in help of all of the out-of-the-box opportunity report types. So these are screenshots from those pages. There's opportunities with products, and it lists the fields and whatnot, and that the default format is matrix because that's easier to look at this data, and so on. Also have the screenshot of the page for the opportunities with contact roles and products report, which is slightly different. There is no page in help for the products with opportunities, which is kind of interesting, but I thought to show you them side by side. So if you're reporting on opportunities and products, there is a difference between the 2. So right at the top, we can see, and I've tried to set the filters as close as possible. So showing all open opportunities all time. So open opportunities with products, same org, you know, just a different report in the same org. There are 431 records for 245 million. And again, this is opportunities with products. And this one over here, products with opportunities, which is based on an inner join, there are 411 records for 239 million. Now, this is like, holy, you know, like this could throw off our pipeline by a lot. You know, some of you know, this is mission critical, right? We have to get it right. So it's important to know the difference between the 2. So why are they different? Well, they're different because the opportunities with products is based on a left outer join. And you see this top row here that has no product name. There are 20 opportunities representing 5.1 million. That's the difference between these 2. So 431 minus 411 is that 20 opportunities. So this is showing us opportunities that have no products. This is the difference between these two, and this may influence how you, set up reports that have product information on it. All right, so Lynette shared that the AI is turned on, the team sometimes uses. Yeah, I'd say if I was a manager or the head of sales, I might just want it to be one extra data point. What does the data tell us? Because they're looking at all the fields on opportunity, all the fields on account, including custom fields for the entire history of your opportunity usage in Salesforce. Well, great. So Victor asked the question, so is that left report type with or without? Yes, but this out of the box, so there are about 75 report types out of the box. I forget the exact number. Most of them are based on inner joins. This is one of the very few that is not. So they really should have relabeled it with or without products to be perfectly accurate. Now, I do want to show you one other interesting thing with this. So we've got our products with open opportunities here. And you can see where I got my screenshots from. When I go to create a new report, and this is the new report type selection page. So just to point out what's coming, this is now a beta that you have to submit a ticket to turn on to see what we're looking at right now. This would likely be a checkbox beta in the summer release in a couple of weeks when that comes out. But basically, you can see all the objects that are available to be used. There might be even one field from an object. There's a lot of stuff in here, like campaigns, user roles, etc. And then you can also see the fields that are available for this report type. There are 156. Now, if I go create another report using that other report type, this one here, so we've got this whole list of accounts. So it's a smaller list of objects and only 56 fields. So that's another consideration, that not only is the data structure different, but the fields that are available are different. I'm going to show you one other way to look at this. So if we go back to our, that's not the right report. Let's go back and let's actually look at the other one. So regardless of which one you look at, and in case any of you aren't sure, anytime you look at a report, right here at the top, you see what I've highlighted here, that is the report type. We can also see it in the report builder. So if I edit the report, you see it in this gray oval here. This is the report type right up here. But one other thing to note is that you can always expand the field selector over here, and you can essentially just read through, what do I have available? This is like a menu of choices. You're out to dinner with your significant other, you're trying to pick something special, and this is what you get. This is basically the limit of what I can use on this report, with the exception of formulas, of course. So these are the choices, but there is a big difference between those two. There absolutely could be a reason why you'd choose the products one, products with opportunities one, if you're really creating a product-centric report, but just about to point that out. All right. So our last topic is around the pre-configured Sales Cloud dashboards. This is a dashboard pack. It's available for free on the App Exchange. I think I've shown them before, talked about them before. If I were to use these, I think this is a good way to get ideas. So let's say that you're tasked with creating some sales reporting and some sales dashboards. I'd say that this is not a bad way to get started and get some ideas. With these 4 dashboards come all of the source reports. So let's say that there are 10 components on each dashboard. There might be 40 total reports to give you ideas. So in our system, we might just take a quick look at them, and I'll just show you how to clone them and modify them for this particular dashboard pack. And thank you, Kyle, for putting the link in the chat. That's great, to the pre-configured Sales Cloud dashboards. They are all set to 9 columns. There was, when Salesforce first introduced Lightning, maybe it wasn't right away, but from the old 3-column dashboards in Classic, they went to 9 columns. And then a couple of years in, they switched to 12 columns. These are set to 9 columns. I would change them all to 12 and I would resize them. You just have more precision when you use a 12-column dashboard. I'd also look at removing white space. I would either resize components or think about changing the nature of some of them. Absolutely, you want to fix the gauges. You might add some color. Let's do it on one of them. Let's go take a look at one of them. So in my system, I have installed the pre-configured Sales Cloud dashboard pack from the App Exchange. There are 4 of them in here. I'll just pick one. I'll pick the key metrics. Now, you can do this with any dashboard, right? You can save as and create your own copy of it. And it's a great way to practice. So this is the dashboard. I sort of have a feeling that it's like those big Legos versus the regular size Legos. The big Legos are sort of awkward looking. That's what I feel like when I see this. Something feels awkward about it. And sure enough, if I were to edit this and go into the settings, the properties, it's set as a 9-column dashboard as opposed to 12. What I'd probably do right away is, if I was thinking to maybe try to make this look a little nicer, I'd go ahead and save it as, so I don't ruin the original. Maybe I'll call this the improved edition, and just change the name slightly, maybe save it in a different folder. But now I can, without worry, modify this one, and maybe at some point just get rid of the original. So let's make some changes here. You notice all the white space, the gas gauges are ridiculous because they're basically all green. I want to double check. I'm always suspicious with funnels that maybe they're combining small groups to other and stuff like that. I can tell, you see the scroll bars on these, these are not size optimized in any way. This feels very uniform. I'm not against uniform. It just tells me that this is sort of a stock thing. So let's first go just make this into a 12 column. Why don't we have some fun too? We'll change it to a dark and we'll make it my favorite watermelon. And like already that looks pretty different. I'm not saying it's better. That's sort of waving my hands over it and saying that I've done something. But I think this pipeline, the funnel probably is pretty good. I might just move it over for a second and just look at the properties real quick. So the default on these is to combine small groups to other. I don't want that. That's good that it's not selected. I usually like to hard code my decimals and make it very specific instead of automatic. The default on funnels as well is max values is 6. So that's a real concern in sales reporting because most of us have more than 6 sales stages. So it's good here that they have it to 100. That makes sense to me. So I think this is good. We'll just leave that one alone. But you can see here that I've got a scroll bar on this. I might click and just drag this down until I don't see the scroll bar anymore. So that looks like that's appropriately sized. I'd probably go through each one of these and try to remove white space, or in this case, the dark space. I might try a different look at the data. We have an awful lot of horizontal bars charts here. Maybe some of these would be switched around. We might come in here. You can see here that our goal must be like 100 and we have 13 million. So we might come in here and resize. Maybe it's not even that bad. Huh, that's strange that that's not, is it missing a 0? How many zeros do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 200. So I want this to be 20 million. Let's see if we add zeros, what happens here. That's a little better. Okay, well, maybe that's a little bit better. We could certainly work on that, but I like the fact that it's not, oh, there we go. So the preview wasn't perfect there, but I don't want these. You'd set the targets for your business. That's typically how it go through, and then you have access to all of the supporting reports as well. So if we were to come, go click on any of these, you could see how the report is set up and what they're doing. I don't think the pre-configured dashboards are great, but if you're just getting started. Because you realize you start Salesforce with 0 dashboards and zero sample reports. In Lightning, there was 0. So if any of you are starting new, it can be helpful to download that pre-configured dashboard pack. All right. So just a quick recap, we talked about pipeline versus funnel. We talked about the sales funnel in particular. There's 2 different models, the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, tofu, mofu, and bofu. Or those other 4, both of those are, we hear. The pipeline coverage ratio, we saw that a 3.2 is sort of this golden rule thing, but it depends on your business, your industry, et cetera. We talked about how to calculate net new logos. We talked about the opportunity score, the AI-driven score, and it's free. Why not take advantage of it? The quirks of reporting on opportunity products and the pre-configured Sales Cloud dashboards. Just to let you know, in case you're in New England, there is Northeast Dreamin' next week. Looks like Tracy's going to be there. Woohoo! So I'll do 2 sessions there, and honored to do the keynote on Friday as well. So excited to be down in Providence and see actual humans again. OpFocus has an event coming up on May 12th on SaaS. So high growth SaaS companies get revenue reporting right. So an old dear friend of mine, Lauren Kelly, who's the CEO of OpEx Engine, will share her insights. She's pretty amazing. And the registration link is there, opfocus.com/events. We've got 2 training classes coming up that I'll teach: our 5-day admin class, June 13th to the 17th, and our 2-day hands-on reporting workshop, June 27th and 28th. And those, you can see details on the OpFocus site as well. We've got some upcoming sessions. The next one is May 11th on Service Cloud reporting, and that's the part 2. And we do have the recording up on the Dashboard Dōjō site. We've got the dashboard makeovers on May 25th. If any of you have a dashboard that you want to share and work on a makeover together, we can anonymize the data. I'd love to work with you on that. And then on June 8th, we'll try out a different type of Dōjō session. Ezra is not only a friend of mine from high school, boarding school a million years ago, but probably one of the first deep thinkers on the platform that I met. I remember him speaking at Dreamforce probably in 2006, 2007. Really a remarkable thinker on data and data analytics. So any questions before we wrap up for today? So glad that you could join us. And Kristen's going to be at Northeast Dreamin' as well. Awesome, Jacqueline. Oh, that's so cool. We should do like a Dashboard Dōjō photo or something while we're there. That'd be fun. Really great to hear that you guys will be at Northeast Dreamin'. Very cool. Okay. Well, guys, look forward to seeing you next month. I'll stay on for a minute in case anybody has any additional questions, but hope the rest of you have an amazing rest of your week. Thank you again, Kyle, for hosting.
Of course.
All right, looks like we don't have any questions. Guys, really nice spending the time with you. I look forward to seeing some of you next week. I can't believe it. Oh, Sue has a question.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Go ahead, Sue. Thank you, Kristen. So Sue, do you want to fire away with your question? Maybe you're typing.
I can unmute you as well if
yeah, why don't we do that?
Hi, thank you all so much for your help. I really appreciate it. I've been struggling with the report and I believe this is probably an easy answer,
okay,
but I cannot figure it out and it's driving me crazy. I am trying to create an opportunity field history report that shows opportunities without updates the last 60 days. The issue that I'm getting is it's listing the opportunities multiple times. So I'm trying to show the owner last modified date, not within the last 60 days. And I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong.
Okay. So something that might be easy. Are you looking for specific updates? Like specific
fields?
There you are.
Sorry, I lost you for a second. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Are you looking for any update, like specific updates to specific fields, or just any update?
Any update at all.
Okay, so then it might be even simpler, Sue. You might use the last modified field on the opportunity itself. So if you create a report just on opportunities, and I've got my screen shared here, and I'll just do it right here on the screen. So
okay.
another option. So I assumed that because you're using opportunity field history, you could even be more specific and say, if the stage hasn't changed in 60 days, using opportunity history. But if you don't necessarily care about a specific field, what you could do is just create the report on opportunities itself.
Okay.
And you could come in here, go into the filters. I'd probably clean up the regular filters, right? you might be only interested in open opportunities, for example. So I've just
Correct.
cleaned up the standard filters. And then there's this field here called last modified date.
Mhm.
And you could say if the last modified date is not equal to, and you could use a relative date. And what was the number of days? 60 days?
Last 60 days.
You could do something like this. So you could say if the last modified, give me all the ones that haven't been updated by anybody on any field in the last 60 days. So this would remove the duplicate problem that you mentioned.
So here's the question though. We've got a lot of these opportunities have been modified by other people. And the sales director only wants to see the opportunities that have not been modified by the owner.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So that's what, okay, sorry.
So then you would want to use the history. That is the reason to use that other way of doing it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, why don't we do this? Sue, I'll reach out to you right after the session.
Okay.
Why don't we wrap this? I'll reach out and just we can figure out a time to just speak about it. To
Thank you so much. It's been
Sure.
making me crazy. So hopefully it'll only take you a few minutes or a few seconds even, but yeah, it's been just making me a little crazy. So thank you so much. Appreciate the help.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Kyle.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.